curfew has been reimposed, but how easy is it for police to monitor all of these restrictions? Let's speak to NSA Global Security expert Rory Steyn, who's joining us by Skype. Rory, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time. So let's begin with those two big ones. The issue of the sale of alcohol, which we're told is still continuing on the black market, and then you've got the 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew. How easy or difficult is it to police that sort of thing?
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and to you too, Tembegile. The problem that we sit with, in essence, is the fact that the police suffer a crisis of confidence from the public. Most of us are, to coin a South African word, a little bit hurtful of some of the inconsistencies, and that absolutely does no good in terms of the police being able to police any of the regulations. Now, that is further exacerbated by the seeming lack of clarity from the top, because we have senior government personnel that contradict one another. The regulations themselves contradict one another. And when a populace sees that, they lose confidence. And that in and of itself makes these regulations extremely difficult to police.
So apart from the population feeling hurtful and the lack of confidence in the ability of police to do their jobs at this time because of various other aspects or issues that I'd like us to get into as we continue our conversation, at a practical policing level, what would be required of the SAPS to be able to go about that monitoring work?
Okay, that's a good question. So first and foremost, as I said, there needs to be absolute clarity on what police are expected to enforce or to police. As soon as there is a lack of clarity, then it introduces uncertainty in the minds of police, and it leads to situations on the ground where they're doing their job, perhaps at a roadblock or somewhere else where they interact with the public, where confrontation is likely, because you've got a frustrated populace and you've got an ill-informed, to whatever degree, you've got an ill-informed police service. And that's just not a good mix. It's not a good recipe. So first and foremost, we need clarity. As I've constantly said, another one of the issues that we have is a lack of training. So if we're going to be policing these regulations, look, those things are new to everybody, to every South African, even though we've been at it for around about 2 months or a little bit longer than 2 months. It's still new. So no cop that's out on the job at the moment, and I feel for our police in many respects. I was one for nearly 18 years, and I feel for them because no police officer that's out there right now doing his or her duty has been trained in how to enforce these kinds of regulations. And I remember right at the beginning, when the president initially made his announcement of the lockdown, he appealed to the police right there on live television that they should handle the public, with sympathy and with empathy, and in an easy, not an iron-fisted, authoritative manner. That we've seen all too much of. So I think that I cannot imagine that there was a whole bunch of training given, and I don't even know how possible it is to do that. But it really does start with that. There's got to at least be clarity of the instructions that have come down from the commanders who take their instructions from, those in charge in government. So it's not easy, Tembegile, and that is why it's proven to be so difficult to police. Apart from the fact that the populace is frustrated, you've got criminals that are just looking for every advantage and every opportunity to exploit the regulations such as they are. So it's just not a healthy scenario.
Just on the nature of the policing, we've had a few high-profile cases of people who are said to have died at the hands of police or the SANDF at the start of the lockdown. Various investigations said to be ongoing currently. But we're now over 100 days into this lockdown. How easy is it to monitor something such as police brutality? Because it's not just the cases that get media attention that are going on.
Yes, I was speaking on a different program last Friday on exactly this. And the reality is that all of our police monitoring bodies, whether it's IPID or whatever, are equally affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and as well as lockdown. And essentially, what I'm saying is that police brutality or violence committed by police or corruption or crimes or the breaking of standing orders and other regulations is essentially an issue of discipline. And as I was saying with the training, it all starts from the top. Whenever your leadership and the filtering down of instructions and discipline falters or wavers, you're going to have problems such as what we're seeing. There is no justification for police acting in a violent or brutal way against its own citizens. At the end of the day, police themselves too are citizens.
I want to ask you then about the military deployment. At the start of the lockdown, 70,000 or so members of the SANDF were deployed in, of course, a supporting role to the police. They don't make arrests and that sort of thing. A lot of people wondering, where are they now? We haven't seen them.
Yes, and I'm not sure whether that's a good or a bad thing, Tebegile, because you hit the nail on the head there. I, as a cop, was always in favor of military personnel assisting police officers in an auxiliary or a supportive role. I am not a fan or not in favor of soldiers and military personnel doing policing or law enforcement duties because they were not trained for that. That is not their job. The military is there to defend the country. The military is there when required to make war, as it were. So what you don't want is the military making war against its own citizens. And we did see some rather unsavory incidents, and there was footage taken of that, as there inevitably is in this modern day and digital age where every cell phone has got a camera and every citizen has a cell phone. So we don't want to see crazy things like military making citizens roll around in the dirt and do push-ups and other physical exercise because they were found outside of curfew hours. We don't want that.
Rory, Steyn, thank you so much for speaking to us on ENCA this afternoon.